Hello. So we're gonna get our Project One frame set up. Okay, so we need the template, which is over here under test print. So we're gonna download this. And I think it's really important to be organized. So if we're starting from scratch here, I have a ton of things going, but let's say this is my fall semester, okay? And then every class that I'm responsible for has a folder. And then each project within those classes, so this is type 1, is going to have a folder. And then I'm going to work out of there. So I just downloaded my InDesign template that is going to show up in downloads. I'll move that over here. And I'm going to open that up. If you try to open it up and you don't have InDesign, you want to go over to your Creative Cloud. And when you go desktop, you want to make sure that for this class anyway, you're going to have Photoshop installed, Illustrator installed, and InDesign installed, and maybe some other ones as the semester progresses. But for now, definitely InDesign and Illustrator. And so when you open up your file, it should look like this. Okay, so the next thing we need is some letters. So for that, I'm going to get them set up in Illustrator. And I like to use the spotlight feature in the Finder, which is Command Spacebar. And that brings up this little bar here so I can kind of open and jump between stuff really quickly. So I just start typing in Illustrator, and I open that up. And it shows you like what's new in this version. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm just gonna do a new file. And I'm going to type out the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. All right. So in my classes, you can use lots of fonts, but the font that's forbidden is this one here, Myriad Pro. And the reason is that is the font that is the default font for your Adobe software. So if you're using this, it makes me think that you never actually picked a font or that something printed out in a broken way. And there's thousands of amazing fonts out there, and this one's great, but anyone but this one. I made some suggestions over in Canvas. So we go to the next one. Some really great typefaces. Classic, so Garamond, Caslon, Didot. I would say use one of these. So let's do Clarendon LTSTD. Okay, so let's see if we can find that over here. So I'm going to go to Web. I'm looking for Adobe Fonts. And I'm searching for Clarendon. Here we go, Clarendon URW. Great. So there's different studios and artists that draw classic fonts, and they'll have their own version of it. So this is fine. I'm actually going to change that over here. Match. All right. So now, when I go over here and I click on this, this properties panel updates to show what it thinks I need to work with. All right. So if I'm clicking on nothing, it shows me things about the artboard. As I click on different items, it's going to show me different, these are called attributes, different parameters of this thing. So that's called a contextually aware menu. It's aware of what you're doing, and it tries to populate the things you can control based on what you've selected. I'm missing a few letters here. W-Y-Z. All right. And so right now it's myriad, no myriad. We're going to start typing in Clarendon, and let's go with Clarendon Roman. All right. So there's the uppercase. To get the lowercase, I'm going to Alt drag like so, and I'm going to go type, change case, lowercase. All right, so right now, this is text, meaning I can change it. I can change the font. I can insert new text in there and type and delete things, and that is great. However, in this project, we're going to be looking at letterforms as individual shapes that we want to scale and rotate and that sort of thing. So in this instance, it's most of the time you want to keep it as text, but in this instance, it's going to be a little bit handier to convert the text into outlines. So to do that, I'm going to just make a copy, and the easiest way to make a copy is just to Alt drag. And then I'm going to go, let's see, edit, or let's see, type, create outlines. And if you look in this little menu here, you're going to see some hotkeys. Hotkeys are a really great thing to get familiar with because they're going to save you lots of time. So the hotkey for this is Command Shift 0. And now, if we look at this, when we select it, it looks a little different. So before there's this box around it and this one line of blue, and now when we click it, it's a bunch of little dots. And these dots are called the vertices or control points. So it's actually changed it from text, editable text, into shapes, right? So now if I go to my text tool and I try to type in here, nothing's going to happen. But what I can do now that it's shapes is I can manipulate these shapes. I can modify it. I can also grab all this and go Object Ungroup, Command Shift G, and now they're individual letters that I can spin around and scale and so forth, right? So for this project, that is much more handy. Okay, so this is all we needed Illustrator for. So now I'm going to grab all this, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it into InDesign. I'm going to put it right off camera, right off the artboard, sorry, so that I can bring them into here if I want to see them. Okay, so they're a little teeny tiny right now, so I might want to just ungroup this. so I can see what I'm working with. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is make a copy. So I like to do save as instead of save, and we're going to call this 1A frame. And then the version, I like to start with 0, and then your initials. Okay. All right, so let's say, so what are we doing? We're looking at these individual letter forms and finding little interesting moments in here that we can kind of crop into and accentuate. So let's start with this A here. This is nice. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to select one of these frames, and I'm going to go Edit, Paste into. All right. And it doesn't look like anything's happened, but what I can do now is if I scale this thing up, it's going to be cropped within that frame, within that gray frame. And what's nice about that is like now we can think about this grid here as a bunch of windows, and through these windows we can see some details from some letter forms that we think are interesting. So that's okay. All right, and so what we're doing in this project is finding interesting, beautiful parts of the letters that are making kind of interesting crops in their own right in each of these windows. There's a lot of things that are going on in this project, even though it seems kind of simple. So one of the things is like playing with the Gestalt principle of emergence. So you see this and you see that it is the letter A, right? But it is also a shape. And like cropping into it to the point, like right here is kind of doing it, where it's somewhere in between just these kind of beautiful, graceful shapes and the letter A. It's like on the line of becoming a letter. The other thing we're doing is trying to create relationships across the frames, right? So let's say I'm going to grab this F. Same thing, edit, copy, edit, paste into. And I have these two frames, and maybe I could do something like match the angle between these two, or have my eye kind of continue from one shape to the next, right? And what makes this kind of an exercise that is great, even if you've been designing for forever, is like it's always like a challenge, right? So, I've been designing for a while, and this is still like an interesting puzzle to kind of figure out, like finding interesting compositions, but then trying to connect across the frames. Okay, other things. So right now all of these are gray, but that's a little distracting. It's more just to see where they are. So as we progress, I would like the fill of these to be white or black. Okay, either one's fine. I want this to be just totally black and white. And so so the fill, this one, accidentally made my A white. So let's fix that. Make this. Double click in there, make that black. In fact, to make this even simpler, let's select all the colors we're not using and delete them, and then make a nice rich black. So a nice black for now is just set this to RGB 000 and just call it my black, so you know which one's which. And then the inside can be white, which is paper for now. Other useful tips is, as you're working, if you want to have another version or try another set of things, that alt drag thing that we did in Illustrator can also be used to create new artboards over here. So if I alt drag, now I got another one. So I still have my first one, and maybe, in this one over here, I am going to turn it around or something. Like, let's say like that. And see if I like this better, right? And so now I have both. Oh, the other kind of nice thing is if I hit W, the other kind of things outside of the artboard disappear, and if I hit Shift W, I can just look at what I'm doing. Okay, and as you progress, you just keep saving versions as you go, so you can always go back to an earlier iteration if there was something that you liked better. And also, like, this isn't going to happen in InDesign or Illustrator, but when you start getting into more complicated things like coding and animation, it's nice to have earlier versions in case something breaks.